AITA for saving the leftovers from a family dinner I hosted because I paid for all the food. Family wanted to take them and divide them, but I wouldn't let them and they broke into my refrigerator. I'm Claire, I'm 28 years old, and this is my very first time posting here. Honestly, I never thought I would be one of those people typing up a long dramatic story about family and food, but here we are. I really need to get this off my chest because I am still confused, frustrated, and honestly a little hurt by how everything turned out. I hosted what I thought was going to be a lovely, warm, family dinner last weekend, and somehow it ended in passive-aggressive comments, cold shoulders, and a weird sense of betrayal over leftovers of all things. So here's the situation. I live in a nice little townhouse that I bought last year. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine, and I'm proud of it. I've always loved hosting. I like making people feel comfortable, and I love to cook. So when I suggested a big family dinner a few weeks ago, I was genuinely excited about it. I hadn't hosted the whole family before, just small things like brunches or birthdays with a couple people at a time. This time, I wanted to do something bigger, really go all out. I invited my parents, both in their early 60s, who live about an hour away. I also invited my older brothers, Jason, who is 34 and married to a woman named Nina, and Matt, who is 31 and married to Emma. Then there's my Aunt Lisa, my mom's sister, and her daughter Brooke, who is 26 and very into crystals, cottagecore, and Instagram stories with inspirational quotes. That's 9 people in total, not counting me. I planned this thing like a miniature wedding. I made a detailed shopping list, mapped out which stores had the best versions of what, pre-ordered some ingredients, and spent days prepping. I made honey-glazed ham that cooked for 5 hours. I whipped garlic mashed potatoes from scratch, no shortcuts. I made baked mac and cheese with 3 types of cheese and a buttered breadcrumb topping. I roasted Brussels sprouts and carrots with a balsamic glaze. I made 3 pies, pumpkin, apple crumb, and chocolate silk. I had fresh dinner rolls and cheesy pull-apart rolls. And a salad that nobody even touched, but it still cost me $28 because it had candied pecans, goat cheese, and fresh strawberries. I even bought wine, 3 reds, 2 whites, and a couple of craft beer options for the guys. The whole thing ended up costing me just over $1,000. And no, I didn't ask anyone to pitch in. I didn't send a Venmo request. I didn't complain or hint. I wanted to treat my family. I don't have kids, I have a good job, and I've always felt like doing something kind like this is one of the perks of adulthood. The dinner itself was great. People raved about the food. My dad kept going back for more ham, Jason devoured almost half the mac and cheese by himself, and Nina took a million photos of the dessert table for her Instagram. Everyone seemed relaxed and happy. There was music, candles, and even a fire going in the fireplace. It honestly felt perfect. Until it didn't. As people started to get ready to leave, things shifted. Coats were going on, Tupperware containers were magically appearing from purses, yes, really. And that's when Aunt Lisa said, completely casually, let's divide up the leftovers so everyone can take some home. Like it was just a given. I paused and said, trying to sound light-hearted but firm, actually, I was planning to keep the leftovers. I paid for everything and cooked all week, I thought it'd be nice to enjoy the food over the next few days. It was like I had broken some sacred unspoken rule. The room went awkwardly quiet. My mom raised her eyebrows and gave me this strange, disappointed look. Jason laughed under his breath and said, wow, okay. That's kind of stingy. Brooke muttered something behind her phone like, well, that's not very in the holiday spirit. Even Matt, who is usually super neutral, looked uncomfortable. I was stunned. I reminded them, not angrily but honestly, that I spent over $1,000 on this dinner. That I did all the shopping, cooking, cleaning, decorating, and hosting. That I didn't ask anyone for a dime. That the only thing I wanted was to enjoy the food I spent literal days preparing. I told them I had planned meals for the rest of the week using the leftovers and that I didn't think it was unfair to want to keep what I bought and cooked. Nobody said anything for a beat. Then Aunt Lisa kind of shrugged and said, well, I just thought you'd want to share. My mom murmured something about how some people think of these dinners as a chance to give, not just take. I didn't even know what to say. People started shuffling out, but it wasn't like the cheerful goodbyes I expected. It felt tense. Cold. Like I had done something shameful. After they left, I just stood in my kitchen for a while, staring at the half-empty bottle of wine on the counter, trying to process what had just happened. I didn't throw the leftovers away. I packed them up neatly, labeled everything, and put them in the fridge and freezer like I'd planned. But now every time I eat something from that meal, it leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. I talked to one of my friends about it, and she was shocked. She said they were being entitled and rude and that it was completely reasonable for me to keep the leftovers, especially since I paid for the entire thing and did all the work. Another friend said, "That's what people do when they host, Claire. You share the food. You let people take stuff." And that left me confused all over again. So, am I the asshole for wanting to keep the leftovers from a dinner I hosted, paid for entirely, and cooked by myself? Or was I supposed to just give it all away because family? I genuinely don't know anymore. Update 1. So, remember how I mentioned that everyone left colder than they arrived after I told them I was keeping the leftovers? I honestly thought that would be the end of it. I figured maybe they'd be a little salty for a couple of days, then get over it like adults. I mean, we're a family. We've had disagreements before. This felt like something that would blow over with time. I was wrong. The very next day, less than 24 hours after the dinner, I was still in my pajamas, drinking my coffee and mentally preparing for a relaxing Sunday of Netflix and doing absolutely nothing. I hadn't even washed all the serving dishes yet. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I assumed it was a package. I opened the door, and I genuinely thought I was hallucinating. There they were. My parents, both smiling like they were stopping by for tea. Jason and Matt with their wives standing behind them. And Brooke, standing off to the side wearing oversized sunglasses and holding a phone in one hand and an empty glass Tupperware in the other. It was like some kind of bizarre reverse intervention where the family shows up because you refuse to give them leftovers. My mom didn't even hesitate. She said with a cheerful little laugh, "We figured we'd come by for lunch and finish the rest of yesterday's food." Like this was just the most normal, casual, completely acceptable plan in the world. Like I was supposed to say, "Oh, great idea. Come in and help yourselves to the food I paid for, cooked, and told you I wanted to keep." I was stunned. Not just surprised, stunned. I told them that I hadn't invited anyone over. That I was actually planning to spend the day alone and relax. That I hadn't prepared anything for lunch. And then my dad, completely unfazed, said, "But there's food left, right?" I said yes, there was food left, but it was for me, not some kind of part 2 feast. I reminded them again that I spent more than $1,000 on that meal. That I spent days prepping, cleaning, and cooking. That the food was mine to do with as I pleased. Aunt Lisa, who hadn't even been there 2 minutes, chimed in with, "Well, we didn't get our fair share last night," as if this was some kind of buffet with a rationing system I had failed to honor. I tried to stay calm. I tried to be polite but firm. I even rattled off the prices like a grocery store cashier reading back a receipt: $70 for the ham, $30 for the cheeses, $12 for the heavy cream I used in the mashed potatoes, $8 for the artisanal rolls I drove across town to get. I told them this wasn't about being selfish. This was about boundaries. Respect. The fact that I was being taken advantage of. Jason just laughed, and said, "It's just food, Claire. Why are you being so dramatic?" Then, without waiting for me to respond, he walked past me and into my house. Like he lived there. Like he owned it. And the rest of them followed. Like some kind of coordinated invasion. No asking. No hesitation. No shame. They walked into my kitchen and started helping themselves. Opening the fridge. Taking out containers. Reheating plates in the microwave. Pulling forks from my drawers. Laughing and chatting like we were all in agreement about this impromptu lunch. Brooke took a selfie with the food and posted it to her story. My salad, the one nobody touched the night before, was suddenly so good now that it was free and forbidden. I kept saying this wasn't okay. That they were being rude. That I wanted them to stop. I tried to physically stand between my aunt and the fridge door at one point, and she actually rolled her eyes and told me I was overreacting. My mom said something about me being too rigid and not fun like I used to be. Emma said I was taking things too personally, which really sent me over the edge because this is my home and this was my food. By the time they left, stuffed full and smiling like nothing had happened, every single container in my fridge was empty. The ham? Gone. The mac and cheese? Not a breadcrumb left. The roasted vegetables? Scraped clean. All the rolls? Vanished. Even the damn salad was taken, tossed in Tupperware and carted off. They even took the last slice of the key lime pie I had specifically saved for myself. I had written my name on the lid like I was in a shared dorm fridge. It didn't matter. They left behind a mess, crumbs on the counter, dirty plates in the sink, and a huge emotional weight on my shoulders. Not a single thank you. Not a single apology. Not even an acknowledgement that what they did was invasive and inappropriate. Just breezy goodbyes and a flurry of car doors closing outside. I stood in my kitchen afterward in total disbelief. No leftovers. No pie. No respect. Just silence. And that awful, tight, burning feeling in my chest that comes when you know you've been disrespected, dismissed, and treated like your home, your time, and your money don't matter. I was left furious. Update 2. The next morning, I woke up feeling wrung out. I didn't sleep well. I kept replaying the scene in my head over and over, the doorbell ringing, the cheerful announcement that they had come to eat my food, the way they just walked in like it was their right, how they had completely emptied my fridge and left behind nothing but crumbs and dirty dishes. It felt surreal. Like I'd watched someone rob my house in slow motion, and all I could do was narrate it. I shuffled into the kitchen, still in my robe, and opened the fridge out of habit. Empty. Nothing. Not even a half slice of pie or a stray scoop of mashed potatoes. Just bare shelves and a lingering smell of garlic and roasted meat. I ended up making myself coffee and dry toast from the crust ends of a loaf I had bought 2 weeks ago. It was brittle and sad, and it crumbled when I tried to butter it. There wasn't any butter left anyway. I sat at the table, staring out the window and drinking my coffee while that awful, crawling feeling started to rise again. I wasn't just angry. I was disappointed, hurt, and completely exhausted from the emotional whiplash. Hosting that dinner was supposed to be a joy. I had pictured everyone going home full and happy, and me spending the next few days reliving it with delicious leftovers. Instead, I had a dirty kitchen, an empty fridge, and the creeping realization that my family didn't respect me at all. After an hour or so of stewing in that feeling, I picked up my phone and opened the family group chat. It had been quiet since the day before. No one had said a word after the leftover invasion. I took a breath, typed a message, and sent it. I wrote something like, "Hey, since you all helped yourselves to the food I paid for, I think it's only fair that everyone chips in $100 to help cover the costs." I didn't try to guilt them, I didn't write a novel, I just stated the facts. I hosted. I paid. They ate everything without permission. The least they could do was help with the cost. The response was instant. Jason replied first, of course. He said that I was being dramatic and that I clearly didn't understand the meaning of family. He added that I was turning something beautiful and generous into a transaction and that it was actually embarrassing for me. Then Brooke jumped in with a wall of text about how money isn't what binds people together, and how what really matters is love, community, and being there for each other. She quoted some spiritual influencer and ended it with, "What you give comes back to you tenfold, Claire. Don't block your blessings." Matt didn't say anything, but his wife Emma sure did. She said I was nickel-and-diming the people who love me and that it was sad to see me treating family like customers at a restaurant. My mom chimed in to say she was disappointed in how I was handling things and that she had hoped I would be more gracious. Aunt Lisa sent a thumbs-down emoji and nothing else, which somehow felt more insulting than words. I replied. Not with anger, not with emotion. Just the facts again. I told them I didn't ask anyone to contribute a single dime before the dinner. I didn't expect help with shopping, cooking, or cleanup. I paid for everything myself, including the wine, desserts, and extra seating. I welcomed everyone into my home and fed them generously. But if they were going to show up uninvited, take food without permission, and empty my fridge, then I thought it was entirely fair to ask for reimbursement after the fact. That opened the floodgates. Suddenly I was being accused of keeping score, of being too rigid, of not understanding the spirit of giving. Someone, I think it was Nina, Jason's wife, said I was acting like a control freak and that I needed to learn how to let things go. My dad said he was shocked and disappointed, and that he didn't raise me to be petty over a few leftovers. Brooke added another post about abundance and how true generosity expects nothing in return. My mom said I had changed, and not in a good way. Not one person apologized. Not one person acknowledged how much time, effort, or money I had put into the dinner. Not one person said, "You're right. We overstepped." No one even pretended to understand why I might be upset. I put my phone down and sat in silence. I wasn't crying. I wasn't yelling. I was just stunned. These were people I had known my whole life. People I had helped move apartments, watched their kids, supported through rough patches, and cooked for countless times. And the second I put up a boundary, one single boundary, they turned on me. Not one of them had even asked how I was doing or why I felt hurt. They didn't care. They just saw food, wanted it, took it, and then labeled me the villain when I asked for something in return. It wasn't about the $100. It wasn't even about the food at that point. It was the principle. The entitlement. The complete disregard for me as a person with limits. I felt like I had been reduced to a vending machine. Press a button, get a free meal. But God forbid I ask for anything back. I stared at that thread for a long time, rereading every message, trying to find some sliver of empathy, some hint that anyone saw me. But there was nothing. Just accusations, judgment, and an overwhelming sense that my generosity had been exploited and dismissed the moment it didn't serve them anymore. I ended up muting the group chat. I didn't leave it, I knew that would spark another firestorm, but I couldn't keep looking at those messages. Not right now. And that's how I was left. Not just without my food, but without the illusion that my family respected me. Not just because of the money, but because of how little respect they had for my time and effort. Update 3. So after the whole leftovers drama, the fridge invasion, and the fallout in the family group chat, I tried to emotionally distance myself from it all. I went about my week trying to focus on work, errands, and anything that didn't involve the words mac and cheese or entitlement. I muted the group chat, avoided one-on-one texts from anyone related to the fiasco, and quietly rebuilt my refrigerator with a solo grocery trip where I clutched my cart like it might be stolen out from under me. I really thought I would be left alone for a while, or at least get some space to breathe. But 1 week later, it was my mom's birthday. She had already planned to host a dinner at her house. It wasn't a surprise party or anything, this was an annual thing. And despite everything that had gone down, I was still invited. I wasn't guilted or begged to come, just casually included like the events of the past week hadn't shattered a long-standing family dynamic. The pettier part of me wanted to ghost it completely. But a different part, the tired, still stung, morbidly curious part, decided to show up. Not for reconciliation. Not for celebration. But because I needed to see them face to face. I needed to look into the eyes of people who had raided my home and insulted me when I set a boundary, and see how they behave now, in their own space. So I went. When I arrived, the house smelled amazing. Roast chicken. Warm cornbread. Sweet baked beans. Some kind of cheesy pasta salad. Cupcakes stacked on a 3-tiered stand like a centerpiece. Everything looked homemade, styled, festive. My mom was smiling. People were laughing in the kitchen. You'd never know the family had been at each other's throats less than a week ago. Everyone was there, Jason and Nina, Matt and Emma, Aunt Lisa, Brooke, even a couple of cousins who had nothing to do with last weekend. It was like walking into a sitcom where the episode reset itself with no consequences from the previous one. People were civil when I arrived. Tense smiles. Shallow hugs. A few tight-lipped hellos. No one brought up what had happened. No one asked how I was. They just continued plating food, pouring drinks, chatting about work and weather and traffic. I sat down at the far end of the table, mostly observing, watching forks dig into fluffy cornbread and spoons sink into bowls of steaming baked beans. Plates were filled. Elbows bumped. Conversations flowed. And then, as everyone started eating, I stood up. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. My heart was thudding in my chest. I waited until I had their attention, then calmly said, without raising my voice, "Just so you all know, this food is mine now. You ate all of mine last week without asking, so I'm taking this as repayment." At first, they laughed. Nervous, awkward laughter like they thought I was joking. Jason made some snide comment. Brooke smirked. Aunt Lisa did her usual eye roll. But then they saw me pick up the large serving spoon and scoop a heap of pasta salad directly off Matt's plate and back into the bowl. I reached over to Jason's plate and lifted a drumstick. I took cornbread from Nina, beans from Brooke. There was a beat of stunned silence as I methodically walked around the table reclaiming food. It was surreal, theatrical, and deeply satisfying. The mood flipped fast. Voices rose. My mom asked what I was doing, genuinely baffled. I looked her in the eye and said, "Now you know how I felt when you raided my fridge without asking." Jason stood up like he was going to block me. Emma gasped. Matt pulled me away from the table, hands firm on my arm, like I was an unhinged guest at a wedding about to knock over the cake. Aunt Lisa said I was ruining everything. Brooke said I was being emotionally manipulative. It was chaos. Not violent, but undeniably explosive. And I just stood there, calmly holding the serving spoon, watching their reactions. I told them, flat out, that this was a live demonstration of what it feels like to be walked over. That I wanted them to sit in the discomfort for 1 minute. That if they thought this little stunt was dramatic, they should consider how it felt to be disrespected in my own home, surrounded by people I thought loved me, while they ate every bite of food I had planned to live on for a week. They didn't get it. At least not right away. The tension boiled over. The party was derailed. My mom, clearly embarrassed and angry, told me to leave. I didn't fight it. I just grabbed my coat, held my head high, and walked out. No tears. No yelling. No storming. Just quiet dignity and an empty Tupperware in my purse that I had brought half-jokingly, which now felt like the pettiest trophy in the world. I didn't expect to hear from anyone after that. But then the next day, my dad called. We don't talk that often, he's quieter, more reserved than my mom, but he called me directly. He said they had a family talk after I left. Apparently things got heated. People were divided. Some were still furious. Some were embarrassed. Some, shockingly, started to reflect. He told me that after hashing it out, they all agreed they had handled things poorly. He admitted they crossed a line by coming into my home and taking my food. He said that while they thought my birthday dinner stunt was extreme, it did exactly what it was supposed to do, it made them feel what I felt. Uncomfortable. Powerless. Dismissed. Then he said something that genuinely surprised me: they had decided, as a group, to pay me back. Not the $100 I originally asked for, but $50 each. He said they wanted to show that they did understand now, even if it took a full-blown social experiment to get the message through. More than that, they wanted to apologize, not performatively, but sincerely. And you know what? I accepted. I told him I was happy to let it go. That I never wanted to fight about food or money. That all I ever wanted was acknowledgement for the time, effort, and care I put into giving them something special. I didn't want to feel like a doormat. I didn't want to be the reliable one who never gets anything back. I just wanted basic respect. Was it dramatic? Absolutely. Was it messy? Very. But in the end, I got what I needed: an apology, some reimbursement, and a little bit of perspective restored. I'm not saying everything's perfect now. I'm not saying the next family dinner will be sunshine and unicorns. But for once, I didn't just bite my tongue and let it go. I stood up for myself. I made them see it. And honestly, worth it. Not just because of the money, but because of how little respect they had for my time and effort.